what frustrates me sometimes when I watch the HD TV shows is that at the end, when they always show you, here's what we bought it for, here's what we put into it. Ooh, look at this profit. It's BS.
Yes.
Okay. That is such a false claim because there's cost associated in selling these properties.
I think they underestimate it by 50% or more.
Hey everybody, welcome to Flipping Filthy. We are your hosts, Dustin, Bruce, and Megan Willoughby, and we got an exciting show for you today as we are going to dive right into some current issues that we are facing in flipping right now today. So,
I'm excited about this one. We haven't really talked much about the issues with the real estate market and differences of time of year. Like we're in the last half of a year.
Yep.
What's the difference between the last half of the year and the first half of the year?
And we also have some other issues that we're working on right now. And we briefly mentioned it in our last podcast, but with the new Washington state housing laws, they are playing to different opportunities for investors, for ourselves. Right? And home flippers. But we're going to dive into this today because we have some really good projects that we want to talk about. So, Megan, why don't you lead us off and let's go ahead and start talking about one of our new venture projects that we've just kind of got ourselves into.
Right. So the one I'm going to start with is probably not the one that you think I'm going to start with.
Okay.
I'm going to start with this great little lot in Arlington that has 2 detached homes on it. And it's zoned duplex, but the detached homes allow us to have a lot of opportunity with condominiumizing the lot. And so what that means is that establishing an HOA and selling the lots separately and being able to profit by far more than if it was just sold as one lot with 2 houses on it. So this allows different buyers to own a home, a smaller home at a lower price, but then pay a nominal fee into the HOA to cover maybe the water or the sewer or some other maybe landscaping, but a typical HOA that you would find in a condo association or...
but that's what it's about though, right? You just said it's about allowing people to buy a home, might be a little bit of a smaller home, but at an affordable price, which is what's really hard around here right now is affordable housing. So by us coming in and condoizing the lot, will allow us to sell the property separately instead of having to sell them both together, which would only play to a certain type of buyer or possibly just long-term investor, someone doing a 1031 tax exchange or something. But in this case, we can get real home buyers, homeowners, owner occupants to buy each of these units individually. Which is why the housing laws are changing and helping us out to make it more affordable.
Right. So the housing law, they are trying to encourage more home ownership, not rental, not increasing the rental market. So that's why the condominium or placing an HOA on the property is really great. It doesn't take long to do. It's just a recording with the county. And then it's fixing up the homes, making it so it's appealing to a buyer to go in and buy a smaller house and have their family or just themselves live there.
Right. And in this case, since both units are already built, all we have to do is what we normally do anyway with flipping homes. So we're going to go into each of the units. We're going to make them gorgeous, make all the necessary repairs, right? Maybe put a little updating twist to the type of property. That's going to be an exciting part, but that's what we do with just regular flips all the time. Now we have the opportunity to do 2 kind of smaller flips on the same property, which, helps out us in different ways too. So I'm excited about that one. It is unique. Maybe we should dive into the other one.
Okay.
Because while this property actually has both the units already built on it, so where we're going to flip both the units, the other opportunity that has presented itself to us is that we did find a flip home that was on a lot big enough to allow us to still condoize the lot. However, we're going to flip the house that's currently there, and then we are going to build a new, what we're calling an ADU unit, an additional dwelling dwelling unit on the property. It will be condoized. We'll be selling them off separately. But instead of just flipping, what makes this the most exciting thing ever is that we will be flipping these homes, but we will also be building new construction on the lot. And that is pretty exciting when it comes to this. So you can see how the housing laws that are being changed in the state of Washington right now are opening up different opportunities to us.
So on a side note, I would definitely check with the jurisdiction that a house that you're interested in and a lot that you're interested in doing a build on. Ask them how long it takes for them to review permits. I know that the city that we're interested in doing this build in, they can review plans within 30 to 60 days, and they can have the first review back with the changes that need to happen. Now, a neighboring city up north, it's 9 months for them to review the permit and review the plans. So keep that in mind when you're purchasing properties. So now let's talk about purchasing properties. What's going on with that? How many homes are out there?
You know, we've talked about that and addressed it in other podcasts, and it was at a different time, obviously. So it'd be interesting to kind of go back and see what we said at that time, because I think today is going to be a little different. When it comes to availability, remember, the number one key rule to flipping, I don't care what anybody says. Uncle Bob's a contractor. Doesn't matter. I don't care. It's all about acquisition price. You need to be able to buy these properties at the right price so that you can put the estimated money into them and sell them off. And remember, when you sell them off, you have closing costs and taxes that should be included and everything involved in that. So what frustrates me sometimes when I watch the HD TV shows is that at the end, when they always show you, here's what we bought it for, here's what we put into it. Ooh, look at this profit. It's BS.
Yes.
Okay. That is such a false claim, because there's cost associated in selling these properties.
I think they underestimate it by 50% or more. So if they're showing $100,000 profit, really, you take that and you divide you take that in half, and
it's probably what it is.
Yeah, it's probably what that is.
Well, the availability of homes, I would say right now, in terms of buying them, we are seeing less in terms of inventory. I'm seeing less, which means that there's still investors out there looking. And when people find the right deal, then they will clamor to it. So I've always been about trying to find your own private party deals. Okay. Homes that maybe haven't been listed, but I'll pause right there. How many homes have you purchased in the past 6 months that were actually listed on the market?
I think a little more than I usually would.
Probably around 10 to 12.
I would say so. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But private has been, it definitely is a lot more. Private party is
how you're going to make your profits.
Right.
Private party, working out deals with sellers on your own, is going to maximize your profits on any flip deal. You can certainly get great deals from your local MLS boards and stuff, homes that have been listed on the market. You can still do it, get great deals. They are just not going to be as good.
And there's going to be a lot more competition.
A lot more competition. Well, what have you been finding out about the availability of homes? Because I know we've also talked about wholesalers and stuff. Are you still seeing them bringing you the same kind of deals?
So it's much slower.
Much slower.
So yes, I've talked to a couple of wholesalers, and they are really having a tough time finding the properties. I feel that this time of year is a little bit on the difficult side, because people really aren't thinking about selling. They're thinking about the holidays. They're thinking about school. They're thinking about it's cooler weather. They don't want to have to move their couch in the rain. And so it's really a slower market for people who are trying to sell their homes or move. And in the beginning of the year, now we have the people who they're getting their tax returns done. They're looking at saying, gosh, I want to move into a home. Now my income is higher. Oh, I now can afford a house. I spent the last 2 years paying off some debt, or, getting my credit scores up. And so that's where I find that trying to figure out what a good purchase price is and a good sales price is a little difficult.
Yeah.
They're not crossing the way that I would like to see it cross. I can't buy them low enough and then also sell them at a decent price.
Yeah. Okay. So you're questioning your own numbers at times.
Absolutely.
And that's why this isn't for everybody. This isn't for the faint of heart. You're going to have skin in the game. You're going to do really well on some flips maybe, and you may lose money on some flips. I've heard people say like, you're not a real flipper or investor until you've lost some money on a flip. I absolutely hate that saying, but it's actually happened.
It's true for me. I just closed on one I took a loss on.
It's actually happened. But that's why we're also looking at volume. But when we are talking availability, it has been a little different. And I felt that. And I truly believe that even when the Fed brought down the interest rates and it gave us a little spur of activity, in fact, our mortgage lenders around here were doing refinances for the first time in a long time, and not just a couple. They were kind of loaded up. But then we saw the bond yield tick back up, and we saw interest rates tick back up with it. And now we ran along with the election, and there was a lot of people out there that were like waiting. They wanted to wait and see what's going to happen. One thing that I can tell you, and I know that we've mentioned this to all the brokers here at our real estate office, is we project 2025 to be a very good year. Now, when I say very good year, one of the things that I'm talking about when I say that is the amount of transactions, the level of transactions. I truly do believe that we will see more transactions. In fact, just yesterday, the Fed again lowered the rate a quarter point. So they're on the right track. And we do believe in the next 12 months, we will see lower rates, which is going to bring the buyers out. And what that does is eventually the sellers are going to say, okay, I know I have a 3-point-something% interest rate, but I do want to move. And now the rates are down a little bit more where I can stomach that. I'm going to sell my house.
Yes.
Once that seller mentality kicks in, we're going to have more opportunity. But in the meantime, what has always been a good flip acquisition are estate properties, okay, or some sort of court forced sale. All right, where it just has to happen. And those are the ones that happen throughout the year, which they're not planned, where people are planning like, maybe I'll put my house on the market in March and I can make the change then, when certain sales don't allow for that planning.
I get some great properties from foreclosure from a wholesaler who deals just in foreclosure. And what he does is he markets this property, he swoops in, he'll do door knocking, and he'll talk to the owner of this house and say, look, in 2 weeks, you're out, you're being foreclosed on, but I can stop the process. I can find a buyer. You can walk away with some money. You might have some time to be able to stay after the sale of the house in order to find a new place to live and to shuffle through some of your things and figure out if you want to move everything you've hoarded over the last couple of years, or if you want to just leave some behind. So there is a great opportunity for a person who, does have hardship. We're helping this person who is in hardship, who may get nothing out of a foreclosed home, or they're going to get something out of their home and be able to move, and then they're not inundated with.
Those are great sales. Again, that is private party, right? Yeah. It goes back to private party. You will always find better profits, in my opinion, with your private party deals. Yeah. So we talked a little bit about the availability at the beginning of the year and kind of the availability that we are seeing now. But let's talk about our sales, because we actually have flip projects that are in contract right now. And we have gone through some different hurdles here lately. And I think it's worth talking about in the podcast, the speed of sales, right? When, maybe when we finally get the home on the market, we've done the staging, we've done the photos, the place looks great. It's immaculate. When people see it on the market, it just looks amazing. And then you get your buyer and you put your buyer in contract. So let's talk about the speed of sales. What are you seeing?
So I'm finding the list price is everything. And it's this time of year, at least, it's important to be conservative with your ARV, after repair value or list price. And in the beginning of the year, you can push it a little bit. There's a little bit higher price point that you can put the house on the market for. There's going to be some urgency with buyers who are looking in the beginning of the year to find homes. And in the last part of the year, it's going to definitely have to be conservative. What I find that the problem is for me is the price in which I'm purchasing these houses is the assumption is, okay, we're still on an upswing of pricing. So houses are going up in price. Well, that's not necessarily true. So if I'm buying a house thinking, okay, the trajectory is going up in value, up in price, and then I know there's going to be a lag at the last part of the year where I have to be conservative with my list price. There's not a lot of spread there or income there for me to make on these houses. So I really have to be very aware of what I'm spending on the front part to take into consideration that I may not be able to get what I want when I list the home. There might be closing costs. There might be negotiation.
And I'll take a different direction when we're talking about speed of sales here. I'll take a different direction with you when we're in contract right now. Like I said, our houses are dialed in. I mean, they look fantastic. And we're not selling new construction by any means, but we're selling very nice product. Still, the buyers in today's market that are buying our homes are still facing challenges in underwriting and what is being required of them. And for the first time in quite some time, I'm seeing extensions on my contracts. And that is not a great thing for flippers because we talk about daily interest on these loans. Right. And that can really add up. And when a buyer needs a 1-day extension, that's one thing. But when a buyer needs a 2-week extension, that could run into an additional payment. 14 more days of interest on that type of loan is not cheap. But sometimes these buyers are kind of being run through the ringer themselves when it comes to underwriting and just qualifying and getting in through these loans. So when I'm talking about speed of sales, that's one thing I've really noticed is, a few months ago, I didn't see any problems in people closing out deals in 21 days. It was easy for mortgage lenders to do that. But I feel like the underwriting requirements on some of our buyers trying to buy the homes are actually getting, kind of sticky there.
And we're seeing more contingent buyers.
Yes.
So we've had that where, okay, we get a great buyer. They're like full price.
Yeah.
We're going to waive the inspection. We're going to waive every contingency we can have, but we still have to sell our house first. And so it's like, okay, well, now we're relying on this other agent to say, I'm listing their house. It's a great house. And then,
but this is real estate. This is real estate. This is how it works. People have to sell their house sometimes to buy their next home. It's just, if you've been in real estate the past 5 years, you're not used to seeing that. Or if you're a seller, you're like, oh no, I don't want to do that. But listen, this is how real estate has always been done.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not a foreign concept or nothing, but you're 100% right, because once you go into that contingent sale, then you're counting on a whole nother set of buyers and sellers to be able to perform in order to perform on your house.
Yeah.
So that it is frustrating, and the delays that can come along with it, right? Again, it's the loan costs that add up. It's the fact that your home is ready. It's on the market. You're paying your staging. You've done your photos. Now it's time to sell the home so you can get that thing sold and get on to the next project. That's what flipping is about. And especially if you're going to be flipping filthy, you need to be thinking that way. You need to be rolling this money. You can't just hold on to it. Oh, you need another 3 weeks? Yeah, no problem. We might have to start negotiating some extension fees within extensions here very soon, because the cost of holding some of these loans is hard. But then when you go down that rabbit hole, it's like, how many of these buyers can even really pay an extension fee? And does that change the underwriting for their loan? Do you just mess things up by doing that? So there's a lot to think about when it comes to this. But you said something just in your last statement when you were trying to determine the ARV, which again, for everybody watching this,
after repair value.
After repair value. After repair value. So we have to determine, like, when we are all done with this property, when we put this $60,000 into this home and I put it on the market, what is it I can sell it for? And that is a key piece. If you are oversold in that, saying, oh, you can sell that for $600,000, but realistically, the data that you should have been told was $575, that $25,000 right now is the world.
Could be the profit margin that you're looking at.
Yes, and you have
especially if you go over budget, or you have to throw in some closing costs, or your holding costs are a lot longer. I like deed to deed in 90 days, but I'm not seeing deed to deed in 90 days.
Yeah.
And deed to deed is when I buy it, and then when it closes and the money's in my account, I want there to be a 90-day difference between those dates. And I'm not seeing that now. I have to go into 6 months sometimes, especially with permitted projects. Those are going to take a little bit longer to complete.
Well, but here's the advantage. I want to tell you what the advantage is right now and what we are seeing. And I am seeing this across the board. And that is when we put our houses on the market, when we flipped them, again, they're immaculate. They look great. They're staged. When people walk into them, it's a different experience than just walking into a vacant reseller home. Okay. So what I'm seeing right now in our real estate market is that a lot of the buyers in this market, they no longer want that sweat equity. They don't want to do any repairs when they get into that home. They may not have the money to do those repairs. They want move in ready. And that's why our homes, maybe we can ask a little bit more for them, but that's why our homes will continue to move. Some of the houses I've seen out on the market with some of my buyers right now, there's just too much little work to be done here and there and everywhere around the home. And they look at it and they're like, God, I don't really want to get into that. So buyer mindset maybe is kind of shifting in that way, because I'm seeing this a lot. They want the move in ready. It's all done. It's not new construction, but it's pretty dang close.
I think urgency has a lot to do with it. We're in a little bit more of a relaxed market, and so buyer urgency isn't just, oh, I'm gonna waive everything. I'm gonna not look under the house. I want to buy the house because it's cute. And I'm not seeing too much of that anymore. Now, with a contingent buyer, I do see that.
Yeah.
But I don't see that if it's just somebody who's living with their parents or moving out of an apartment or relocating. They're really looking at that inspection report. They want a lot of the work done. The request is 15 to 20 items long, and it's pretty scary. Is once you find a buyer, there's relief there. Now they're negotiating more out of the home. They might cost $2,000 or $5,000 to do the repairs, and that eats into the bottom line as well. So
can I ask you a question? I want to ask you a question about your properties and your listings. With your listings and your properties, do you have an inspection at the end of the job? Do you have a pre-inspection available for buyers to come in with on this? Because I've seen a shift in this recently, and I'm just wondering, do you? I
used to have the pre-inspection report offered to buyers, but I found that they would have their own inspection done anyway. So then a $750 inspection report was just tossed into the garbage. The buyer had their own inspection, which is great. Buyers should have their own inspections. Yeah. But it didn't help me to have an inspection and say, I'm going to offer this for a buyer to come in and...
And so just for everybody watching this, I want to let you know that the reason why any seller would have a pre-inspection on their home is so that when they receive offers on their home, that they are hoping that there is no inspection contingency involved in that offer. The offer actually will dictate at that point if there's anything that they want fixed, or if they're good with what they see, or maybe they don't make an offer after reviewing the pre-inspection, which could be the negative part of that as well. But I've also seen that people want to have their own inspections on the properties. And so more of my sellers recently we've decided like, okay, we're not going to offer the pre-inspection on this. Yet you would not believe how many questions I get about, do you guys have a pre-inspection on the property?
They ask for it, but they're not. Then
they want to see it
afterwards,
but they're still going to have their own.
Yeah.
So you have to, does that money work, right? I mean, we always tell people, don't spend the money on something that's not going to profit you back in some way. So now everybody's asking themselves, does the pre-inspection going to do that? So I find it interesting, determining the ARV of these homes when you're buying them. The first of the year, we thought maybe it was a little easier. There was some data there that we were looking at, and you can see the projection through the spring on how your values would go. Now we are seeing more stabilization. We're seeing some areas where pricing is coming down a bit, but those could have been overlisted houses in the first place, right? I'm seeing houses that were listed that should be flips, right? But they are listed at an ARV that's like the market value, and it just sits and sits and sits. And it's the concept, the sellers can't wrap their heads around it. But that's, when going into these projects, you got to look at the data and really kind of look at, okay, when I list this home on the market, here's what I can do.
Right.
Plain and simple. Because by the time you get there, that should be your mindset throughout your whole project. And if that changes at all at the very end, you would hope, if anything, it would change upward and not change downward. But getting into a deal where you're just so far off on value, it's a horrible way. That's why it's great for people to work with real estate brokers. The brokers are the ones that can find these properties, that can bring them to you. And that's just kind of how it gets started, So that's my thoughts on the ARV, because it is getting a little bit tougher. I know that I have a lot of brokers asking me for help on the ARVs and stuff right now. And I'm seeing that it is a little tougher because the data is just not, there fully as much. So.
I know I sell more homes the first half of the year than I do the last half of the year. And so this year, I think it was my goal for the company is 30 homes. So 2/3 of the sales would happen in the first half of the year, and 1/3 of the sales would happen in the last half of the year, just because of school, summer, holidays, and the urgency in which buyers are really not, there's no urgency for them to buy. In the springtime, there's urgency. So it's that overlap of, okay, now I'm trying to buy a house after the spring rush, during the summertime, knowing that I'm going to be putting it on the market in October or November. So what do I buy this house for? What can I sell it for? I might be 3 months down the road. Interest rates might adjust, which we've seen. We saw interest rates going down in the spring, first half of the year, and then going up in the last half of the year. And that is just so frustrating.
The market's frustrating. Yeah. Well, the market's going to be the market.
That's right. The market's going to be the market.
No, it's good. I memean, these are all things that we face, and we do this all the time. And so to be able to share this with other people, I think it's just very raw, and it's very good for them to hear you talk like that, and to hear some of that conversation, because we really don't, sugarcoat anything on Flipping Filthy here on the podcast, man. We're going to lay it out as much as we talk about how great things are. We have no problem in sharing any failures with you as well. So,
and keep in mind, the math is the math. There might be a good time of the year to sell. There might be a good time of the year to buy, but the math is the math. Don't overlook a project because you think, oh, it's December and nobody's going to buy a house during Christmas time. No, the math is the math. If you have the income and the investment to be able to put into this flip house or this investment house, and the math makes sense, do the project. And just do the project. If this is your first time, just do it. Jump in.
Well, on that note, for Megan Willoughby, I am Dustin Bruce. Hey, if you haven't hit the subscribe down below, I'd love to see you do that. Give us a thumbs up. We've just watched another episode of Flipping Filthy. We're so appreciative and humbled to have you guys along with us for the journey. We hope to see you next time for Flipping Filthy. Take care.
Thanks. See you later.